You know what teeth are for. They cut, they grip, they tear. Every predator you have ever heard of, every shark, every crocodile, every apex hunter in the history of this planet uses some version of the same system. Pointed, serrated, designed to penetrate. Now imagine something that abandoned that system entirely. Not because it couldn't evolve teeth, because it evolved something faster. Something that created a force no tooth could replicate. Something so mechanically extreme that modern engineers have studied it to understand how suction-based systems work at maximum efficiency. 360 million years ago, in the warm, shallow seas of the Devonian period, there was a fish. It had no teeth. And it was the most effective predator in the ocean. This is Dunkleosteus torelli, and what it had instead of teeth will change how you think about what a predator actually is. Before the mechanism, the animal. Dunkleosteus was a placoderm, an armored fish. Not armored the way a turtle is armored the way a tank is armored. The front third of its body, the head and anterior torso, was encased in interlocking plates of dermal bone. Thick, dense, layered. The kind of structure that fossilizes well, which is fortunate because it is almost all we have. The tail and rear body, soft tissue. Gone. Not preserved. Which means for over a century, scientists estimated the total length of Dunkleosteus based on the skull dimensions and comparisons with living fish. The estimates reached 10 meters, some pushed higher. Then, in 2023, a reanalysis changed everything. Researchers comparing the skull proportions of Dunkleosteus not to modern bony fish, which it does not closely resemble, but to living sharks, produced a significantly different number. Not 10 meters, closer to 4 to 6 meters. Smaller than previously thought, dramatically more compact. And because of that compactness, dramatically faster, more maneuverable, more explosive in its acceleration. The monster did not shrink. It became more frightening. Now, the mechanism. Dunkleosteus had no teeth. In the place where teeth would be, the jawbones themselves formed the cutting edges, self-sharpening blades of exposed bone, 2 on the upper jaw and 2 on the lower, meeting in a precise scissor geometry that kept them perpetually sharp through the act of use. The more it bit, the sharper they became. But the blades are not the point. The point is the speed at which those blades opened. In 2006, researchers at the University of Chicago published a biomechanical analysis of the Dunkleosteus jaw mechanism. What they found was this. The jaw of Dunkleosteus could open from fully closed to fully open in approximately 20 milliseconds. 20 milliseconds. 1/50th of a second. The human eye takes 150 milliseconds to blink. By the time you have completed the fastest voluntary movement your body is capable of, Dunkleosteus has opened and begun closing its jaw 3 times. But the speed itself is not the weapon. The weapon is what that speed creates. When a jaw opens that fast underwater, something happens that has nothing to do with the jaw itself. The rapid expansion of the oral cavity, the space inside the mouth, creates a pressure differential. The water pressure inside the opening mouth drops suddenly and dramatically below the pressure of the surrounding water. And water, like all fluids, moves from high pressure to low pressure. Instantly, automatically, without any action required from the predator. The prey does not get bitten. The prey gets inhaled. At the moment Dunkleosteus opened its jaw, the water around its head accelerated toward the opening mouth, carrying with it anything in the immediate vicinity: fish, cephalopods, smaller placoderms. Dragged inward by a pressure gradient, the prey had no mechanism to resist. The bite force of Dunkleosteus has been estimated at over 4,400 newtons at the tip of the jaw, among the highest of any fish ever measured. But by the time the jaw closed, the prey was already inside. The suction did the capture. The blades did the processing. It was a two-stage weapon. Stage 1, vacuum. Stage 2, bone scissors. No escape from Stage 1. No survival from Stage 2. The Devonian Ocean, 360 to 420 million years ago, was not the ocean you know. There were no whales, no dolphins, no sharks as we understand them. The sharks of the Devonian were small, primitive, nothing resembling the apex predators they would later become. The largest things in the water were the placoderms, and the largest placoderm by a margin that was not close was Dunkleosteus. It ruled an ocean full of ammonites, coiled cephalopods reaching a meter in diameter, their shells providing what seemed like reasonable protection. Dunkleosteus bit through them without mechanical difficulty. The self-sharpening bone blades, combined with a bite force of several tons per square centimeter at the blade edge, made shell irrelevant. It hunted other armored fish, animals that had evolved their own bone plating as a defense against the predation of that era. The armor that protected them from everything else was insufficient against a jaw that could generate that pressure differential, that suction, that closing force. Defense had no answer for Dunkleosteus. Evolution in the Devonian Ocean had produced something that the available defensive strategies of the era could not counter. Every predator in recorded history that you can name operates on one fundamental principle. It must get close enough to make contact, and then it must apply force at the point of contact. Dunkleosteus broke the first part of that equation. It did not need to make contact to initiate the capture. At the moment of jaw opening, from a distance of 1 body length or less, the prey was already moving toward it, drawn by physics, not pursuit. The predator could be stationary. The prey could be attempting to flee in the opposite direction. Neither of those facts changed the outcome once the jaw began to open. This is not a refinement of predation. This is a different model of predation entirely. The Devonian Ocean had fast predators. It had armored predators. It had predators with powerful jaws and sharp edges and every conventional advantage the evolutionary toolkit offered. Dunkleosteus had a pressure weapon. And in an ocean where everything else was trying to be faster or harder, being the animal that made speed and armor irrelevant was the decisive advantage. Dunkleosteus did not survive the Devonian. At the boundary between the Devonian and Carboniferous periods, approximately 359 million years ago, one of the most severe extinction events in Earth's history eliminated an estimated 75% of all species on the planet. The cause remains debated. Ocean anoxia, the depletion of oxygen from marine environments. Rapid climate cooling. Volcanic activity disrupting the food chain at its base. Possibly all three simultaneously. Dunkleosteus, at the top of a food chain that collapsed from the bottom, had no resilience against the disappearance of the ecosystem it depended on. The prey vanished. The apex predator followed. The placoderms, the entire armored fish lineage that had dominated the Devonian Ocean for 70 million years, went extinct completely. Not reduced, not diminished, gone. No placoderm survived the boundary. What replaced them? The sharks, the bony fish, the lineages that would eventually produce everything that swims in the ocean today. The successors inherited an ocean the placoderms had ruled. They built different systems: teeth instead of bone blades, flexibility instead of armor, speed over suction. Whether those systems better is a question without a clean answer. They were different, and the Devonian Ocean, the environment where Dunkleosteus was the definitive solution, no longer existed to test them against. In 2023, when the size revision was published, some headlines framed it as a disappointment. Dunkleosteus was smaller than we thought. The monster was less monstrous. That framing misunderstands what makes an apex predator. A 4-meter animal that can create a suction event powerful enough to capture prey without contact, that has bone blades that self-sharpen through use, that can open its jaw in 1/50th of a second, is not less frightening because it is 4 meters instead of 10. It is more frightening because 10 meters is just size. 4 meters with that jaw mechanism is a precision instrument. The ocean has produced many large things. It has produced very few things that were genuinely, mechanically, physically impossible to escape once they decided you were prey. Dunkleosteus was one of them. It had no teeth. It had something that made teeth look like a compromise, and it used it faster than you can blink.